am Peter Williams. I am the Curriculum Development Director. And I apologize, on the program, I'm supposed to have a co-presenter listed, who's not listed there, but this is Peter Blair. Hello. So we're kind of doing a Pete and repeat thing. Sometimes in the office we go by First Peter and Second Peter. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm a curriculum design leader, so I work with a team of 4 other designers. I just kind of help in the design process across those designers.
So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be kind of tag teaming back and forth a little bit today to talk about the method to our madness. And what we mean by that is the curriculum development process that we go through whenever we design a new course, whenever we redevelop a course after it's already been live for a while. And it's actually a shortened version of it often, but it's a similar pattern that we go through in the improvement projects. So when courses have changes or updates to the textbook or some of the activities or content of the course, we go through a very similar pattern. And so we'll be showing that to you today. We're also hoping by the end to take advantage of the setting to get some of your input, some of your ideas on course design. So put you to work a little bit. We thought one thing that might be helpful, actually, for our online audience, I have to say a few things. I don't know how well you can see the slide set here up on the screen. And I apologize, I think right along with not having Peter Blair's picture and bio on there, I don't think that they have the slides posted yet. We'll make sure they get them after the conference. But if you go to this short Google URL, you can see the slides for yourself, so you could read text or whatever if it might not show up as well here. That's goo.gl/VMBT capital T lowercase m. Anyways, if you go there, you should be able to see the slides as we go through. We're going to start out just with a brief video that gives just a 3-minute overview of the process. You can see this on the curriculum-development website, BYU-Idaho. And after it goes through this, then we'll dig in and we'll talk about different pieces in greater detail. But we thought it might be nice to start with an overview. And then we hope to be able to sort of delve in where you might have more questions as well. So having seen the overview, if there's parts that you want to focus in on, we can certainly do that.
Life cycle of a BYU-Idaho online course.
Apologize, the full screen's not.
First of all, the Dean's Council works with different colleges and departments to determine which classes will be developed into online courses. Once a course has been selected, the department appoints a course lead. A course lead is a department member who has experience teaching the face-to-face, on-campus class. He or she acts as a subject matter expert. Since this vital role requires an extensive time commitment, departments will accommodate for this time in the course lead's teaching schedule. Simultaneously, the online department assigns an instructional designer, known as the curriculum designer, to the project. The course lead and the curriculum designer form what is called the course council. They, along with a team of student employees, will design and build the course. During the pre-development semester, the course council meets together a few times to review the course outcomes and objectives to ensure the online course aligns with the face-to-face classes. They also begin planning for any textbook, video, or audio needs for the course. The development semester contains the most concentrated effort in the course development process. The course council works together closely, meeting at least weekly to compile all the necessary components, such as assignments, labs, quizzes, etc. Some face-to-face learning activities transfer well to an online course, while others need a completely different approach in order to be successful in an online classroom. In addition to the work of the course council, media developers create graphics and videos for the course. Furthermore, all other outside resources, such as library materials and external software tools, are incorporated at this time. During the review semester, a team of copy editors reviews the course to confirm that all links and activities function correctly, that it upholds BYU-Idaho delivery standards, is accessible to all disabled students, has clear and concise wording, and that the course meets legal criteria. Once the online course has been created and reviewed, one section of the newly designed course is taught to students during the pilot semester. An online adjunct instructor joins the course council to teach this section of students. Each week, the course council evaluates previous, current, and upcoming lessons and makes necessary adjustments to the permanent version of the course. An important transition occurs at the end of the pilot semester. The curriculum designer leaves the course council, which now consists of the course lead and the lead online instructor, known as the Online Course Representative, or OCR. The college department now retains complete stewardship over the course. The course council, aided by the online course improvement team, monitors all sections of the course and makes any necessary adjustments. These alterations may be as small as changing sentence syntax or as large as replacing lesson content. If the modifications are extensive, the course may even be redeveloped. The course is constantly improving. If online courses are designed correctly, multiple sections can be offered. There are several courses containing over 100 sections of enrollment. This massive development effort by faculty, designers, and student workers continues to bless us throughout the world.
I'm told those are golf flags, putting greens all around the world. So. Let's see, we don't want to watch it again. Okay, so that gives you kind of a brief overview of the process. We thought it might be useful to talk just a little bit about the roles, and then we're going to dig into just sort of that orange part of the process for new and redevelopment, and then just tell you a little bit about the blue part of the process, which is continual improvement. So in terms of the different roles, I should ask, first of all, are there any questions as you saw the overview, anything that stuck out so we can make sure we get it? I don't know how we see our online participation with chat. We're going to give you a better option a little bit later for some participation. So in terms of the roles, it starts out with colleges and departments helping to select which courses will be developed. Those are courses usually that fit into our online degree programs. We also develop courses that are bottlenecks for students here on campus. And you might be teaching either. Once they've selected the course and the faculty member who's going to be the subject matter expert and the course lead for that course, we pair them up with that designer and we dig in. Something that was brought up briefly in the video is that we work with this course lead and the designer together. I can't remember if it mentioned, though, that oftentimes there are others in the process that are involved as we develop. The faculty, for example, in a foundations course, where we're blending together several different disciplines, would ideally have a colleague or two participating in that process. Usually the course lead would have like 9 hours a week or something as a leave to develop the course. And these other faculty members would be in more of a consulting role where they're just spending an hour here or there reviewing some content or giving feedback or helping to brainstorm, those sorts of things. If it's a redevelopment process, so the course is already live and been offered, we already have instructors who have been teaching, the OCR is often involved in that redevelopment process, giving feedback about how the course is going and which things can be improved. It mentioned, I think, some of the other resources. We have Ina here. Raise your hand. Ina is our library specialist for online, and it's one of the resources that we pull in early on to help identify texts that could be used in the course and resources. We're especially trying to help faculty find digitally accessible resources so that it can be distributed globally and also to help eventually with the cost reduction. Although right at the first, as we do digital, I think there's a little bit of a price bump. It's sometimes a little bit more expensive. And then it mentioned, I think, some of the other resources. We have a small army of part-time employees that are students here at BYU-Idaho who help us as assistant designers. They're technical writers. Sometimes they have come from the subject area that we're developing the course in. They might have served as TAs in those areas. Those are the kinds of part-time employees that help us out. Any questions on roles in the development process? Okay, so yeah, we talked about there are two sort of different modes that we're in. The first that we'll talk about is for new and redevelopment. And here, we talked actually already about how department chairs and colleges help select which courses. That's what's happening there with committing the team and asking them to help develop the course. We hold a kickoff meeting. It actually is very similar to the process overview that we're giving here. We dig into just a little bit more on the student audience, on the instructor profiles, and some of those sorts of things to help campus faculty who are helping to develop these understand that context. And we figured you are quite familiar with yourselves and the students. And we talked a little bit about Ina's role there. I didn't mention here actually the media consultations. We have a graphic designer and a video producer, and they have part-time student employee teams that help develop some of the, look and feel, the banners, the images, some of the motion graphic things like the one that we just saw on developing an online course. Sometimes there are motion graphic kinds of things in courses. Sometimes there are videos. I'm trying to think of some of the videos. In family history, I think I heard we've got combine harvester that goes off of Elder Scott's talk. There's a video on that. We have a video for those teaching foundations. We have a why foundations video that's in development right now that's going to be really good, helping students understand, why we do foundations and big ideas. So anyways, we get to develop some of those sorts of things. Now we're going to drill in. We're going to start showing more of the examples with Peter, who's a designer and leads a group of designers in developing these courses. And the first one is outcomes in architecture.
How many of you are familiar with an outcomes in architecture sheets? Maybe seen them in your courses before? Okay, maybe not. Well, it looks like, I'll show you that in a minute, but the point of these is to get everybody on the same page in terms of the outcomes and how the course is structured. So really this serves us as identifying those outcomes, matching assessments to those outcomes, and then really kind of solidifying the organization of the course. Where is a topic going to be taught week by week at a high level? So as an example of that, you can see, here's a course outcome in architecture for a course that I'm working on right now for COM. It's 1 credit. You can see the enrollment capacity. We have the description. One of the key parts is this outcomes, right? Also prerequisites. Not shown on this example, unfortunately, is the assessments that go along with those outcomes. But that really kind of is our starting point. That makes sure that we in the department are all on the same page in terms of this is the course, these are the outcomes that we want to develop, and here's how we're going to assess those outcomes. In terms of, so that's really the end of the preparation phase when we get that collected in that document. That tab, that outcomes in architecture, also lives within the course map. So starting with the outcomes in architecture, we develop a course map, and the point of the course map, you should all be familiar with that from piloting your course, is really to then refine that outcomes in architecture further and help us to identify a high-level view of the course in terms of what really is going on week by week by week, activity by activity, what's the instructor role, what's the student role, how much time do we estimate is happening on those. And then it really also serves as a collaboration tool between us and the faculty and our students all working together to create this course. So here's an example of a course where, a course map where we're doing just that. So you can see kind of we've moved from the outcomes in architecture. You can see that here's kind of what's going on that first lesson. You can see here's our project management kind of tracking. We can see that we need a little bit more work on a video here or some element of content, and then kind of where we are in terms of drafting and getting things done. So it really kind of serves us as a collaborative tool that way as well. So how do we envision online instructors using these? Well, going back to that idea of we estimate these student times and instructor times, we want the instructor to be looking at those and telling us, are we up in the night, or does this seem like a reasonable amount? We try our best to come up with these estimates, but we also want to check with you as instructors during the pilot semester and subsequent semesters
because this course map serves as the blueprint of the course. And if something needs to change, we need to know what needs to change.
Peter, we asked on outcomes and architecture how many had seen those. How about course map? Do you know where to find the course map?
Peter, I don't know if, are the outcome statements included in the courses? I don't think I've ever seen one in the course.
Yeah, so on the course, let's see, do we have an Excel view just of the whole course
If you go
map?
to the faculty tab and you go to the courses there actually is the outcome statement and all of that under the faculty tab where you look for your courses.
Another place where you can find them, so the course map tool for many of the new courses that we're developing is in a Google Sheet with several tabs, and the course map is one of the tabs, but the outcomes and architecture is another one of the tabs. And that's the format for all of you.
Okay, so here's an example of an instructor helping us out with those estimates and looking during the pilot semester and saying, okay, here's what we estimated. Here's what you're experiencing in your course. It looks like we're a little under here. Is it just because it's the pilot? So we'd have a discussion about that. How are things going? What do we need to change? How's it feeling for you as the instructor? So that's one way we envision you as the instructors using that. We also envision it just kind of you helping you get a sense for here's what's going on, here's what my students are going to be doing, and here's the role that I'm going to be playing. Another key part of this development process is developing a first lesson prototype. We like to do that first, get that reviewed, looked at, and then once we know that that's good to go, we then try and develop the rest of the course, all 14 lessons. So this ties back to the course map. Again, how does the course map help us to move along in that process? So looking at this one activity earlier from COM 289, we use the course map to, again, tie this back to outcomes. So we look at the outcomes. How are we assessing this in the course? In this case, students are going to the Academic Discovery Center on campus. So we look at that, and we look at the outcomes. What are the key things we want them to take away from that? Then we look at modality. How can we best do that online? We ask, how do they do this on campus? What aspects of this can we replicate online? What's going to work? In this case, we would just put access to the website for students to review and explore the same kinds of things that they would be doing on campus. Another key element that I really enjoy as being a designer is we get weekly design meetings where we consult with the other designers that are also working on courses each week and say, we're designing an activity like this. What other courses have used something like this? What's working well? What's not working well? What should I avoid? What should I be aware of as we design that? So that's kind of how one activity would move along in the course map process to thought to creation. So then once we know how we're going to design it, we would draft it in iLearn. Again, all of this involves extensive collaboration with faculty. It's a team effort. So we work closely with them. We would show them the activity and say, here's the things we're having them do. Does this reach the outcomes that you're hoping that they'll achieve? Then we would redraft if we needed to, and then we negotiate some more. So that's how an activity would move along the process of a course map, and that's how they help us to kind of design. Again, that's an idealized process. Through any part of this, there can be twists and turns. All parts of course design are negotiated solutions. We are always kind of balancing great ideas. So I, as a designer, might have a great idea. My design team might have a great idea. Faculty frequently have wonderful, great ideas. But we always have to balance that between the timeline that we have for creation and the amount of time that we have to create the course. The other things that I've listed there are some other examples. We mentioned earlier the media consult and the library consult. Creating a textbook takes a lot more time than finding a textbook, using a textbook that's free out there. But there's also some time involved in getting up to speed on that new resource. So it's always a balance between what's going to work, what's going to be good enough. One example that I'd like to share is that improved student learning was in the WDD 100 class. We had designed a web design activity where students would learn the basics of making web pages. And we did that in the first semester and in the pilot. And that seemed to go well, but they needed more practice. They felt like the online instructor had noticed that. So one thing that we did was we in an improvement project, we revised the course and added access to Code Academy, if you're familiar with that. And the online instructor and also our team felt that it really achieved those learning outcomes of walking the students step by step by step through the process. So that was one way that we found a negotiated solution. Again, none of these are probably perfect solutions, but they work for the needs of the course. Once we've designed the course, another key element that we're looking at is the course notes. You should be familiar with course notes, I'm assuming. Again, course notes vary from course to course. Some courses have novel length instructor notes, and others have bulleted point lists. The key thing to remember with this is they need to be helping you. If they are not helping you to teach the course, you need to reach out to your course lead. You need to reach out to the designer that you're working with, likely in the pilot semester, and we'll help flesh these out so that you get what you need to grade the course, to have the course function the way it needs to. So again, that's the key thing here, is that we need these to be helpful for you.
Can we do a little polling there? So how many have course notes that feel more like a novel, where there's lots of detail there, lots of description, versus how many have more bullet list kinds of things?
As far as our own personal.
Yeah, in your course, the notes that help the instructor know, hey, on this lesson, you should be preparing for this next.
Yeah.
You should be reminding about the assignment they're working on. More like a novel, lots of description there. Others?
Mine are in between, but they're not helpful.
They're not helpful? No, that's okay.
Good. We need to know that.
So what should you do about that? Do you have?
Well, I created my own, but I pass out because I'm an OCR, so I created my own that I give to my instructors.
You're an OCR then?
Yeah.
Okay. And let's see, in family history, you have a little bit of a weird situation. So I'll use the standard terminology, but you know that you've got some different things. But how about your course counsel? Have you discussed the course notes with your course lead?
We have many other high priority things.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being willing to share some of that, because the course notes, we take a crack at it at the beginning, and it's all hypothetical, right? We're thinking our way through the course. What do they need to be looking forward to? How should they grade this consistently? What problems might students be having at this point that you should, test out the waters and see how they're doing on this or that? Then it's all a hypothetical, experiment there as we create those. It's based, of course, on the course lead's experience teaching the course on campus, but it's a very different experience. So the course notes, this is one place where I would say it really, really, really needs instructor input as time goes on. Course notes should be improving over time. So if you have course notes, and it sounds like you've figured out some things that help the course run well. Those are the sorts of things that I would really encourage everybody to talk with your course lead in that course council. And if you're not the OCR, talk with your OCR so that they can be having that discussion. But the course rep and the course lead should definitely be discussing course notes from semester to semester and what kinds of improvements will help other instructors teach the course effectively and consistently from semester to semester. Right? If you look at something like inter-rater reliability, on how we grade papers, on how we give feedback for participation activities, all those sorts of things, it really depends a lot on what's in those course notes, those lesson notes. So I would say that's a great point. Should I go on this?
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, we do have the example.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
This confused the snot out of me the first semester I taught, like 6 semesters ago. It was week 1, week 2, now there's lesson 1, lesson 2. Is there any way, my feedback is, can we just call it lesson 1, or can we just call it week 1 to get past it? Because students are asking me, it takes them a while to get used to it. But even I struggle, and I've been teaching it for a year and a half. Why do we have the ambiguity there?
Thank you very much. And it's Travis. Thank you very much for bringing that up. So I hear you, and I hear thousands of other voices. That's kind of the deal here. So our current standard is the number is what's critical and has to be in place. So all of our courses right now, there are a couple of exceptions, but almost all of our courses right now have intro, 1 through 12, conclusion. And they have varying labels on them. Some say week, some say lesson, but it is consistent within the course. We have a few courses where there are lessons grouped into units or something, and they might call it module, they might call it unit. When those sorts of things happen, or the whole determination as to whether we call these weeks or lessons or modules or units, that depends in a large part on how the campus faculty, the course lead, refers to it within their campus teaching group. So if they are in a mindset with the other faculty here on campus of calling something a unit, and they're trying to keep this course in sync with what they're teaching on campus, sometimes they'll want to still refer to it as a unit or a lesson. So that's the reason for some of the complication. I'll throw in just one other twist here. Did anybody get to go to the D2L session or visit the booth, maybe in the digital fair? We're going to be going through a conversion in our learning management system from our Brain Honey core of iLearn to a Desire to Learn Brightspace core. And when we do that, we're taking the opportunity to make a few refinements in our standards. And one of them that you'll see is there's been plenty of confusion over intro and conclusion, and if those are full weeks or not, and those sorts of things. And so in the Brightspace setting, you'll see those labeled 1 through 14. And 1 will most likely include the label on it, 01 intro, and 14 will have 14 in conclusion. But that's been some of the confusion, I think, for students and instructors when we actually start in the first week that we're actually doing something in the course, it's calling it intro. And the second week that we're in the course, the second time we come around, it's called 01. So that's some of the confusion. So I don't know that I've answered the question. I hope I've helped you to see just some of the complexity and why there are different perspectives and how we're trying to deal with those perspectives. But we do try and keep it consistent within the course. Any follow-ups on that one?
I think, Peter, I'm not positive, but I think this was how it was decided, is that they would actually be, like you said, 1 through 14. And I think the decision was to make them, to keep them lesson by default. But again, departments come in and they say, we've got to have it this way because we have a consistent or a lab that has virtual students as well as campus students, and we've got to keep them in sync with that. Or if they have other kinds of things like that, then that drives that. We're going to try to keep it as consistent as possible. So hopefully we become more consistent, but I'm not positive.
And by the way, this is Lynn Anderson. She's our managing director over the curriculum development and course improvement, as well as the D2L conversion. So, thanks, Lynn. Okay, so we're hitting review semester, and I'll just point out on this one, we review the course for several different things, and it starts out with standards review, but we also want to include product testing, both from the student perspective, how's this course going to run when a student's actually in it, as well as from the instructor perspective. And I'm gonna just be as transparent as we can here. We do pretty well with the student review because we work with a lot of students, and they serve as our part-time employees and things. And so on that student review, we get some pretty good student perspective before the course runs. The instructor review is a little bit harder, and we haven't got that quite where it needs to be yet. Ideally, we would have the either the instructor who's going to teach the course or somebody from the instruction team. And I think last discussions with online instruction about this, there's some debate as to whether it should be the instructor who will teach it or whether it's somebody kind of like the trainers. It's an experienced remote instructor who's been through a lot of our courses that might be able to see there's a landmine. Whenever we have this kind of a thing happening in a course, that's really difficult, you know. So that's part of the discussion there. It's also, it can be tricky to find that instructor in time to get them involved in the review when it's a new course. But we're working towards that and really hope to get to that point very soon where we have the instructor reviews happening before courses go live as well. Then some of the second half there with copy edit, copyright, accessibility. Think of producing a textbook. It's a little bit different from how you deliver a class, you know, in face-to-face environment in terms of copyright constraints and things like that. So we have to make sure that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's there. Do you want to show them the review sheet?
Yeah. About that. So here is the review sheet that goes back to that standards review Peter was talking about in terms of our delivery standards. So a lot of it is, you know, can off students complete these activities? So this gives you kind of the review team's perspective, the course designer's perspective on those. Peter was talking about the student perspective, and then the aspirational bit, where we really like to involve that online instructor to get their perspective as well. Anything else you'd like to say?
Are there any questions on standards? Something you've seen in your courses? This was, for example, a good one. I mean, we've talked about course structure. We'd like to have a consistent experience for students from course to course and instructors from course to course in terms of where to find things, you know, and how to run the course. Any other questions on standards or what we consider to be a good course?
Can I be specific to family history? So do the family history courses follow this? Because it seems like they didn't get the -1 semester.
The intro week?
The review. They didn't.
Oh, the review semester?
Review semester.
Okay, so good. Okay, you're talking about when we're actually in process.
Yeah.
Sort of went from development right into piloting. There are some exceptions, and I would say, I mean, they are small exceptions, but there are exceptions where the department has a real need to hustle the delivery of a course. And in cases like that, we might have development and review happen in the same semester, and then we quickly jump into pilot. Maybe there's high student demand. On the family history courses, what happened is we were working with the family search team in Salt Lake to develop those. They had time to work on them, but we were developing 18 courses, and they had their time a little bit sooner than we would have ours. Ours needed to be more spaced out over time. And so we worked with them to develop those courses, but then you can't just start offering the whole degree all at once. They go through introductory courses before they're ready for secondary and, you know, some of the upper level courses. So that's what's happened on family history. We developed them, they went through a review semester, and then they waited for a couple of semesters, some of them, before it was actually time to pilot them and we would have enough student demand to take the course. So it might have been a little bit disjunctive, but we did go through a review process. Do you see problems with the course that you think should have been caught in the review? Those, we would love to see those. I mean, those are the kinds of things that you could submit through the course fix form. Does everybody know where to find the fix and suggestion form in your courses? You can submit them there, and we'd encourage you, talk as a course counsel first. Sometimes you'll have a large list of items that you'd really like to get done in a course. And if you talk with your course counsel, you should be helping to collect together, well, is this just my perspective, or is this kind of our consensus that these are some things that we ought to improve? Anyways, and be submitting those things. And as you submit them, you can submit little things, like sometimes there might be broken links, or hey, the due date on this activity doesn't work. It really needs to be moved. This is how it needs to be moved. Those would be examples of what I'd call kind of individual fixes that you'd submit. Sometimes you have lots of suggestions about the course. Maybe you have a Word document where you've outlined a bunch of errors, typo errors and things like that. If you've got something like that, you can actually attach that document to the form and submit it. And for clerical kinds of things, for typos and if you see any errors like that, those things can be fixed relatively quickly. That's where we put our part-time student army to work. If it involves more of the course strategy or the instructional strategy of the course, those are things that we definitely want to work with the course lead as we go through those. And sometimes we'll need to schedule those out and get a designer, time allocated to work on that project, and sometimes those can take a little bit. But we would encourage you, please do help us improve the courses. Don't just live with a course where you've got several things that you change each semester, for example, that are mistakes in the course. Submit those.
Are we allowed to change things in the course? Like, can I go into an assignment and change the wording that doesn't make sense?
So right now, no, you're not. And in D2L, there's going to be a slight tweak on that, and you're going to be getting some communication on that very, very shortly. I saw a draft of it, sort of clarifying what things would be the same and what things would be different in terms of guidelines to instructors about what to change and not to change. Of course, the principle here is we want the campus experience and the online experience to be equivalent. We want students to be equally prepared for the next courses in that program, whether they take it on. We want to be teaching the same outcomes that are aligned with the program, things like that. And so that's why some of the reason for the guidelines in the past for instructors to not change things. The kinds of things that you'll see being tweaked a little bit in D2L, we're going from a master derivative model, where there's a master, it's linked to a bunch of sections each semester, and if we make a change in that master, all those changes filter down to those sections that you're actually teaching. That's sometimes how we can make a change, for a typo or something like that, live in the course, and you'll see it happen in the same semester you're teaching it. In D2L, we won't have that. It will be a master copy model. So it's more like a publisher model where you have an edition of a textbook that comes out. Our editions will come out like every semester. We'll have a master course that we make changes to. I think we might be calling that a reference course. And then each semester, we'll make however many copies of that course we need for the sections.
So right now, if I make a change in my course and then you guys update it to the master, it breaks the link, and my course doesn't get updated.
Right.
In the future, with D2L, if I make a change in my course, it stays in my course, doesn't affect anything else. There's no changes, there's no updates to my course.
That's right. That's
so
exactly
I
right.
actually have to go in and change it if there's something that needs to be changed.
Yep, that's exactly right. And so, and to just give you a taste of some of the implications on that, of course, we'll have to have guidelines to maintain some order, right, as to what things we ask you to change and which things we ask you to not change as you teach a course. So that the course lead, for example, can have good assurance that we are teaching to these same outcomes and with these same activities and things that have been designed. But if there are typos or extra clarification you find you need to add or whatever, and you're making that tweak to the instructions of this activity each time, that's where we'd be saying, hey, don't just make it in your section, get it submitted through your online course rep into that fix process. So that we can update the master and everybody can benefit from that. It sounds like, for example, your lesson notes, where you've required some lesson notes that are really helpful in teaching this course. Those are the things that we would hope you talk with your course counsel and make those improvements to the master course. Okay, flip back to the beginning. We're going to talk about the course development process.
Now we're scared to ask questions. All right, I'm still going to ask my question.
Even with Joelle here, you're going to ask.
Okay.
Kimberly?
Yes. Thanks. So some of us teach. I was in a meeting yesterday that kind of erupted over this very issue. Unfortunately, it was addressing the wrong people who can't do anything about it. Some of us teach older foundations courses, which I question whether went through this process or not. And there are major changes that need to happen. And we faithfully submit them, and it's like sending it into the black hole. How do we get some of these older courses updated? And I know some of the problems that we worked through the course leads and all that, and the course leads throw up their hands and say, we just don't have the kind of resources to do this. How are those how's that kind of resources allocated? How do we get these changes made? I know all of us want the best courses for our students, but I mean, I love my class. I love it, Joel. It's a fabulous class, but it really does need a lot of fixes. And I've been doing this for 3 years, and I know Sarah's been doing it for me, and basically none of those changes have been made for years.
This is not unique. I know this is, for me, I've been teaching the same course for 6 semesters. The very first semester, I wrote all these things I'd like to see change.
Yeah, we've done
We
that.
went through the course, and we even had meetings with the OCR, with the course lead, and they said they were gonna look at it, and then I don't get any follow-up. No feedback, and I have to email directly the course lead, and finally he said, no, I just didn't have time because of my on-campus requirements. I thought, I understand. I'm in academia, I understand this, but this should not be happening. There should be somebody here that can say, okay, you can't take it, that's fine. Then I need to, there needs to be somebody else, either the OCR or a full-time person. I don't know, this is just my feedback.
Good. So I'm really, really glad this caused a brawl in your other session, and I want it to happen again here. What I want to say to that is, please know, we all love the students. We want the very best product and experience for them. And we work together in councils to do that. Please keep submitting them. Please keep talking with your OCRs. Don't let off of that. The complication that we're working through as a university is figuring out these things. And when I say we all love the students and want the very best thing for them, I'm talking about curriculum development, online instruction, instructors, students, of course, they want the best thing, right? I'm talking also about the course leads and the department chairs on campus. They want the best thing for the students as well. I can tell you that. I mean, BYU-Idaho, this is part of what makes BYU-Idaho just a very special place. We don't wrestle through some of the ulterior motive kinds of things here. Here you can work with people and you know everybody wants it. They want to bless the student's life, however that can happen. It's a matter of trying to figure out load. You know, when we have faculty who are teaching 12 load hours on campus and they've been asked to serve as the course lead for this course, how do we keep in balance the feedback and some of the improvements that need to be made to the course? We've been working with development contracts. How many have had a development contract? Any here? So we sometimes contract our online instructors to help with some updates to a course or to help develop quiz bank items or help with a textbook revision or something like that. And so we've experimented with using development contracts to help relieve that bottleneck.
Tripled our budget for development contracts to help course leads where they can't do it.
It's not just us in the trenches of curriculum development and instruction working on it. Campus.
So become the squeaky wheel that gets
Yeah.
these resource oils.
Keep asking.
I'm gonna ask it that you do this. I'm gonna ask you send me an email and tell me what class you're teaching. We are meeting now. Trying to remember, I think it's Steve and Cody are meeting from our team with foundations because the dean and the associate dean said we've got to not have this continue. We've got to be hearing these things ourselves because our course leads are so busy, and in foundations, we don't really report to the foundations dean or associate dean. They report to their own organizations, and so they're not hearing this. So we are starting to address this. We're starting to find ways. We've just recently been discussing a lot about load, and in fact, Peter and I just came from a meeting with President Gilbert, and we're discussing the role of faculty and how we can make this work, because how do we scale it? If we double our portfolio of courses, how do we scale with the number of faculty we have on campus? How are we going to do that? So we really are grappling with these things, but that doesn't address your concerns. And so I would like to hear specifically what they are. So just send them directly to me. Anderson with an O-N-L-Y.
These aren't going to be copied.
I just would like to hear what you have to say, and then I would like to make sure that from my end, if I'm sitting here hearing this and I don't do anything about it, then I'm just part of the problem and not part of the solution. So I'd like to hear what concerns you have, and then maybe even here's the email that I sent, or here's the number of tickets I've sent in, or the number of complaints I've made. And then I'd like to just follow through and see what is the holdup with your particular issues in that particular course. Where is the bottleneck and why aren't you getting it? I just would like to know that, so if you'd be so kind as to send those to me and
Careful what you wish for.
I have the understanding.
My question is canceled, but should I still send you that information of what we've tried to go through to get?
I would like to hear that,
Fixes in
because I hear it from other perspectives, but I don't necessarily hear it from your perspective. So I'd like to hear it from your perspective. I'd like to know what you've gone through and how you feel.
I think it's a really good point, but I think one of the issues here is that we don't have an outlet. And so maybe at the end of every course, it's a novel idea, maybe survey the instructors and say, hey, what is going on? What can you tell me that you didn't tell the OCR, you didn't tell the TGL, you didn't tell the course leader, that you did and nothing's happened, so that maybe you can be the collector of that. I think it's a really good idea.
So one of the things as we look through this process, one thing we don't do is we don't beta test. Well, we beta test. The beta test, that's the pilot. But then we don't take any comments from the pilot. It's interesting. We have a review after before the pilot, but we don't have a post-pilot review. So that's an interesting thing. And maybe you're saying the same thing each semester. If we could just have some type of survey that we fill out, that would be interesting.
And then get feedback to the teachers.
Will you be reading this email with the understanding that we love BYU-Idaho?
Absolutely.
I just want it to be good.
Absolutely.
This is a problem we've known about, we've heard, we're wrestling with. We're pulling our hair out going, how, really? We haven't solved that yet? We're trying so hard to solve it. So getting these stories to help us dig in deeper and get to the bottom of it and fix it is a good thing.
Can I make one more request also? Again, there seems to be some disjointedness between what's going on with you guys and what's actually happening in the classroom. And I'm also a TGL. I only look at instructors who basically teach my classes right now, but I have dealt with other classes also, and I've run into this multiple times where the instructor opens up and sometimes there are major problems with the changes, and they're just scrambling all semester, and the students no longer trust their instructor. And as you make changes, can I just request, please let the instructors know. It is horrible to think you know what's going on and think you're all set, and then whammo. And the students are going, what's going on? And you're going, what's going on? And it's horrible, and it really discredits what we're trying to do. So if we could just let instructors know, just a little more communication would be fabulous.
That's another really great point. Let me just say 2 bits on that, and then we've got to come up to Joelle, who's just jumping.
Yes.
In fact, I'll just sit down and you can go. So what I was going to say on communicating changes and what happens. We're doing a couple of things. Peter, can you flip to the pilot tracking sheet?
That was my comment, so you don't need to come to me.
Oh, no, we'll come back to you. So we've added this. This is in that same spreadsheet with the course map and the course outcomes. We have a pilot issue tracking sheet. And I shouldn't actually call it the pilot issue tracking sheet. It's not a tracking sheet. It's called the issue tracking sheet because we use it during pilot. That's when we really use it. But it stays with the course. It stays with the course council. And what this is we try and, in those weekly meetings as we pilot, we try and bring up, so what are the issues that we've seen this week? As you look to next week, what can we do to help you? And we try and note those issues and then prioritize them and figure out what gets changed now while we're in the pilot, and things go on our list of priorities to submit as improvements, for after the pilot. So that's one thing that we're doing to try and work on, keeping track of issues in a way that we could share with others. This might be a little bit more detailed than most instructors want to wade through. But again, this is included right with the course map and the course notes section of the course. All instructors can see this in the course. The second thing.
Is this a new addition to our courses?
Yes. So we've been doing this for the last, what, Peter, 2 or 3 semesters? Yeah. So again, you're right. It hasn't gotten back to all the courses yet. The second thing that we're doing, and this one will be in all the courses, as we shift over to D2L, we've added into our course template to appear in all of our courses a release notes page in the instructor section. And the release notes page will have a list each semester that any improvement project happens, you'll see there what was the nature of the improvement that happened. And if it's a substantial improvement project, we're going to have communication wrapped around it. We've been trying this out a little bit. The biggest example I can think of is in our Book of Mormon class, Fidrel 121. We made major revisions to the course, and it involves a lot of instructors. And so the course lead and the OCR hosted a live session with the designer there, explaining to instructors what's changed about the course that you'll see in a few weeks. They had the designer there to help answer questions as well. They recorded it, they linked it in afterwards, so those who couldn't attend live can see it afterwards. And then it would be the same kinds of stuff that would be summarized on that release notes page. So we're trying really hard to make some progress in that area, but we want to be doing a better job communicating with you what changes are made. Are there other questions about that? By the way, we're truncating some other stuff that we were going to show, but this is exactly what we hope to come out of it, was to get into the process enough that you can talk about it with us and help us zoom in on which things are most interesting. Joel, did you have anything else that you got to bring up?
Is there going to be increased communication between campus and online instructors when it comes to like developing these courses and making improvements on like revising courses and things like that?
Yes, so that's, when you say, is there going to be increase, that's relative, right? So for some groups,
right.
We have not only enough communication, we probably have too much communication going on. Either, well, from the instructor side or from the course lead side. In other courses, and this probably is still our majority, we don't have enough communication going on. And this comes back to that strategy issue that Lynn Anderson was addressing earlier, where we're trying really hard to figure out as a university, what is the right balance? How can we give enough load and time to the course leads who have responsibility to work with course councils in that way? How can we, clarify roles so we know which things to bring where, which things ought to go with the OCR or just with the improvement process that maybe wouldn't need to go to the course lead, by way of typo fixes and stuff like that. We hope that we're able to make those kinds of changes just immediately. So anyways, we're wrestling with those.
I was
issues.
asking because we were in the same meeting yesterday and talking.
You were in the brawl too.
Yeah.
Good.
And
Mostly observers, but
yeah,
we were not at home.
we were the only two we had random courses where everybody else had taught the same course yesterday, but we were in our department meeting with them, and it was brought up that the people that created the course originally in the department really didn't have a lot of experience teaching online courses. So when it got translated to online, all of a sudden it really didn't match up well because they didn't know what it was like to teach an online course. And we all kind of talked about the fact that if we could somehow have greater communication between the department creating it and maybe one or two online instructors who have experience teaching the course, of how that would help improve the issues that we're facing, because a lot of times they haven't taught online courses and they don't know the issues we face. They were kind of surprised at some of the issues that we face, things like that. Like, I mean, for example, my course has a discussion assignment with no discussion board. So my students can't discuss everything with each other because there's no discussion board. And we try to get that fixed over the years and it just hasn't ever happened.
That's the kind of thing that hopefully the
kind of
fix
an
forums should be
issue.
able to solve.
Well,
so.
and as far as, I've been the OCR for a year, and like I said, my course is not getting canceled, but I wonder if those things had been addressed earlier, whether the course may not have needed to been canceled at this point.
Can I ask you what department? I'm just curious because we've got so many departments at this other meeting, this strategy meeting. I'm just curious.
It's the history, geography, and political science.
We're all
I teach
foundations teachers.
what foundations, but I
The
teach.
foundations courses are older and have just never been fixed. And
Yeah. I've taught the class for 3 years and seen no improvement.
Yeah.
Across the board. I can get like a date fixed or something if it says the assignment's due on Thursday and it's really due on Friday. I can get that fixed on the OCR as well and the TGL over my group. And little things I can get fixed, but I was told by the OCRs prior to me coming in that they had recommended changes for years, like the discussion board, where we all feel like this discussion assignment, instead of writing up a one page, would very easily translate to a discussion board and actually allow the students to interact with each other. And it was something that never got done. And we were just in our meeting, the point was of maybe increased communication between the department creating it, and somebody who has experience, an online shepherd has experience actually teaching an online class.
So it's still to be helpful if you send that information, because again, we're having these other strategy meetings, we've got to be able to figure these things out, especially as we consider that we're going to be growing and we need to know how to do that. As far as having online instructors involved, we've had a discussion, I've had a discussion with Alan Young about this. We've talked about it. Where does that occur? Does it occur in the initial new development process for at least someone who's had experience in online in that field? You know, that kind of topic, it may not be that to the course. We discussed how valuable that might be to the course council initially. We talked about, especially in redevelopment projects, how that would be valuable. We haven't figured that out or gotten to the details, but we have that discussion. So this is helpful as I'm thinking about what direction we're moving in.
And I hope you know, we haven't figured it out yet, but boy, we've sure been trying. We're not, I'm thinking about the Book of Mormon here and the letter to Pahoran. Just know that we're not sitting on thrones someplace assuming it all's well. And we know there's some pain here. We've been trying several different things to figure this out. We'll get it.
Yeah.
We'll get it because this is the Lord's work.
So,
And so he'll help us. It's just a matter of, you know, figuring those things out.
so with the Pahoran and that example, coming back to the battlefield of Moroni, DTL, you know, coming up, we're transitioning. Are we going to be looking at these courses as we transition into DTL, or are we just going to copy and paste?
Yeah. So I would say for the most part, don't expect the design of your course to change much at all in the transition. We've got about 2,400 courses in the catalog at BYU-Idaho that are unique courses offered every semester. And we've got to move that whole portfolio of courses, you know, from their current state in Brain Honey Core over into Brightspace in about 3 semesters. So we are very much going to be moving things over and keeping them for the most part the same. There are some systematic things that we're trying to address, like the lesson numbering that I talked about earlier. And we're certainly going to be making lists as we go through about some of the things that they run across as they transition a course. But I would say that the course fix and suggestion form, your course council communication, that's still your primary mechanism and hope for getting changes made to the way that your course is designed. Let's see, what else do we have? Are we done?
Yeah.
We're done.
Maybe we'll wrap up with our last slide, which is, you know, as a designer, I love getting feedback, and I really want the courses that I help with faculty to be good experiences for you. So I appreciate the feedback that you've given, and I'll do whatever I can too to help in those situations that we've talked about. Again, all of us are trying to work together to meet the needs of these students. We want to create high quality learning experiences for these students that are based on the learning model. We want them to be maintainable and scalable and offerable. And we ultimately want to extend BYU-I to meet the needs of these students around the world.
I wouldn't add much to that. Just we framed it as the method to our madness. A little bit tongue in cheek there. I hope you know the method we've been trying to show you. It's had a lot of thought put into it. It's a carefully thought out process, but it's a mortal process and it's constantly improving. And so we welcome your input and suggestions. And I would also just say, so that's our method. And to the madness, well, what is our madness? By that we mean, well, our goal. And our goal that we all share is to love and serve Heavenly Father's children and to extend those blessings of a church educational experience to many more members of the church. And for a lot of them, it has much more to do with the gathering, with the saints that's happening. And we're cognizant of that. President Eyring has counseled BYU-Idaho, make sure you get the right outcomes. And by that, I think he was talking about the right outcomes aren't just the academic learning, although we do want all of those. And I don't think I'm interpreting too much for President Eyring, but I don't think that in any way we want to, hold back on the academic rigor of our courses. But we do want to be incorporated in our courses, and obviously as you facilitate these courses, the Spirit of the Lord, where relationships are being developed, that you love and serve each other, and that you're preparing together for the things that the Lord has in store for us. Thank you very much for all you do.